Lamar Jackson clapped back at his critics on Monday and defended Mark Andrews as the Ravens got some respect, but also got disrespected again after their Week 4 win against the Buffalo Bills. We talk about what was said, continuing to recap the game between Baltimore and Buffalo as well. All that and more coming up next here on Locked On Ravens.
You are Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to another edition of Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Oestreicher of Ravens Wire, here with you on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you so much for being here today on this Taco Tuesday, making Locked On Ravens a part of your day and your first listen each and every day, free and available for you all podcasting platforms. That's in video form on YouTube and audio form wherever you get your shows. It's the same show, both audio and video, so you're not missing out on any content whatsoever, regardless of how you decide to watch or listen to the show. We're a 5-day-a-week Ravens podcast, so Monday through Friday, we bring you Ravens coverage, plus we do bonus episodes, instant reaction episodes, a lot more. We have all the Ravens coverage here for you on Locked On Ravens. Today's episode of Locked On Ravens is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. We're back and we have a lot to dive into today. Bunch of developing storylines on Monday. Again, the biggest one was that Sunday night game where the Ravens walloped the Buffalo Bills by the final score of 35-10 in the final part of the show. We'll continue to dive into that game, break it down a little bit more. We started to do that yesterday, and we'll continue that today and continue that conversation. But Lamar Jackson ended up defending Mark Andrews, and he also clapped back at his critics. We'll talk about what he said and why he's correct in a lot of these situations. Now, the Mark Andrews thing, it was just a phrase, wasn't anything crazy, but he talked a lot about it being a team sport for his fire back at critics. So we'll talk about that. And then we'll also dive into some of the other narratives, what John Harbaugh had to say as well. He had some praise for a lot of different units and also opened up on that timeout debacle that happened on Sunday night. So jam-packed episode today. One maintenance thing, though, is in audio form. We had a heck of a day yesterday. It was a weird day where the final segment of our show just did not take in audio form. It just would not upload. It cut off the show after 2 segments. And if you're watching in video form, you're like, what the heck are you talking about? But in audio form, I just wanted to apologize. We got it all figured out at the end of the day. I just uploaded the full episode, and now there are 2. It's just the one that's 2 segments, and then the one that's 3. So in this industry, technology, as you know, is not my friend. If you've been with me for a while on Locked On Ravens, I've had weird things happen with episodes all the time. First time that's happened to me in 5+ years of doing this, but there's a first time for everything. We got it solved. So just wanted to extend my apologies, but we move forward and we talk about today. And today we're going to talk about Lamar Jackson firing back at his critics. Now, this coming at 10:39 a.m. for Lamar Jackson on Monday. And obviously, a lot of the conversation around sports today is whether it be sports betting or, fantasy football, whatever it may be. There's a lot of, upset people if things don't go their way. And so Lamar's also talked about how, this is a team sport. That's the main message of what he said here. But all the criticism, or at least I shouldn't say all of it, I should say some of it yesterday was about, Lamar threw for only 156 passing yards. Oh, he didn't have a good game. Oh, Lamar, he didn't do enough. And the Ravens won. He got carried. Obviously, all of that is bogus and baloney. But Lamar on Twitter said, quote, "This is a team sport. I'm not out here satisfied when I throw for 300 yards, but took a L. If I throw for 50 yards and we win, that's what matters. Y'all stop commenting on our socials about the yards. Y'all FanDuel or parlays ain't hit with the thumbs down emoji." So Lamar's clearly not a fan of your parlays. He's not a fan of any of that. But I mean, look, I agree with Lamar, and this doesn't shock me whatsoever. Lamar wants to win. Lamar doesn't care how it's done. We know Lamar's a team guy, and him saying this is a team sport is everything that he's been echoing over the course of his It's now 7 years in the NFL since he came into the league in 2018. So even you want to go back to Louisville and high school, Lamar is a competitor. He wants to win, and he doesn't care how it gets done because a win in the win column is a win in the win column. Doesn't matter how it gets done. And the Ravens, this whole thing about the passing yards and the narrative surrounding that, I've talked about this before. I literally talked about it last night and this yesterday too, where it was never expected for Lamar to come into this league and be asked by the Ravens to throw for 350 yards a game every game for his entire career. That was never going to be what this was for Lamar Jackson. The Ravens drafted Lamar Jackson because they believed in his skill sets, they believed in his talent, they believed in his work ethic and everything else. And they decided when the rest of the NFL was going in one direction, they wanted to go in another one. And so this has been my philosophy forever. I don't care how you pick up yards. I don't care how you score touchdowns. I don't care how you win or lose a football game. Just do it. Just pick up the yards, pick up the touchdown, pick up the win. I don't care if you throw for 150 yards or run for 150 yards. I don't care if it's a 50-yard completion or a 50-yard run. It all counts the same. I don't care if it's 6 points through the air or 6 points on the ground. It all counts the same. And I don't believe Lamar should be punished for that. And look, he's been hearing it his entire career. And I'm sure he's fed up with it. He's done a great job of kind of navigating around it, but he will speak up for himself. And I'm glad that he does do stuff like this because, you know, people think they can just be kind of unchecked about it. This wasn't directed at anybody. This was just a general statement. But the narrative after Sunday night's game was, oh, Lamar threw for 156 passing yards. And so Derrick Henry carried him and Lamar didn't do anything in this game. When in reality, yeah, Derrick Henry had a heck of a game. Incredible. But Lamar was out there. And the thing that I have just been shouting from the rooftops for years about Lamar, and it applies here, stuff I said yesterday as well, Lamar is so good that he can have 156 passing yards and only throw the ball 18 times and whatnot. The Ravens can still win by 30. Yeah, he had help from his teammates. Guess what? Everybody gets help from their teammates. But Lamar is such a player that you have to gravitate towards, that he opens up things for everybody. He is an elevator of talent. He's an elevator of those around him. And a lot of quarterbacks aren't. There are plenty of those that do, and Lamar's in that category. But there are a lot of guys that people talk about as, oh, this guy's good, or even this guy's better than Lamar in some people's eyes, that don't do that. Where Lamar Jackson has had to work with receiving groups that weren't necessarily as good as some of his counterparts. And Lamar Jackson has had to work with other positional groups that weren't as good as his counterparts. And he's elevated that. And that's what makes Lamar good. That's what makes Lamar great. That's what makes him elite. But for him, it's about the eye test. It's about watching the game. Again, I'll say it. I'll point them out too. With your eyes. You take your eyes and you watch the game, all right? It's how you do things. Take your eyes, watch the game, watch Lamar. You can see the defense struggling. Where do we go? What do we do? How do we pick who we're going to stop? Because Lamar has that much gravity. And why do you bring in Derrick Henry? Because he has that gravity too. And so if you want to take an example from Sunday night's game, well, guess what? Derrick Henry opens up the festivities with an 87-yard touchdown, reaches 21 plus miles per hour on that run. And the next play that the Ravens get the ball back, the Bills are so focused on stopping Derrick Henry and scared of that threat. The Ravens run play action off of it and get a 10-yard completion to Zay Flowers, and the defense was almost frozen on that play because there are three things you have to worry about. Honestly, more, but I'm just going to break it down into three. Derrick Henry, Lamar Jackson in the play action game. All that you have to be worried about. And when the Ravens get one aspect of it going, whether it is Lamar's arm, whether it is Lamar's legs, whether it is Derrick Henry's legs, whatever it is, defenses have to pay more attention. And so there's always going to be the threat of Lamar Jackson. And the threat alone causes defenses fits. And that in itself shows and proves that Lamar Jackson, despite not, throwing for 300 plus yards per game, has so much more of an impact beyond the box score. And for those who do not understand that, for those who say that, oh, well, what about the guy who handed the ball off to Lamar? He didn't do that. No, Lamar was just as effective in this game as a lot of other people. And he's not going to get that, box score credit, right? Derrick Henry's box score looked flashy. Derrick Henry was awesome. And he's going to get that credit because the box score looked flashy for him. But even if Derrick Henry had, I don't know, random stats, 13 carries for 70 yards and a touchdown, let's just say that. The threat of him still, he has that gravity. It's the eye test with both those guys. But in this offense, Lamar is never going to be asked to just air the ball out all the time. And so in a league that is pass happy and passing yards are king, apparently, Lamar's never going to be in that world. But that doesn't mean that Lamar doesn't just do so many other things to make this Ravens offense so dangerous, because he can sling it with his arm. He can run it with his legs. And his gravity in itself, it doesn't matter for Lamar. It doesn't matter how he gets it done. He wants to win. It doesn't matter. He said it. He laid it out. The groundwork for Lamar, if you didn't think it before, here it is. Of Lamar wants to win. He doesn't care about his stats. And it comes back to the Super Bowl too, right? And we all know this. Lamar, the motivating factors for him behind winning a Super Bowl, obviously, he wants to win it because he's competitive, but he wants to win it for his teammates. He wants to win it for his coaches, the city, everybody who has worked with him to get to that point. Lamar wants it just as badly for them as he does for himself. This is not a selfish thing for Lamar where, I want to win because, it helped me out. No, Lamar doesn't care about that. He wants to win for his guys as much as he wants to win for himself. And he holds himself to a very high standard. We all know that. So for Lamar Jackson, he's heard that whole narrative and everything, that all that disrespectful stuff for his entire career. But in a game where the Ravens won by 25 points, they dominated the team in Buffalo. Lamar played a huge part in that, as did Derrick Henry, as did the defense, as did a lot of other people. But Lamar, while he's getting praise from a lot of people, I'm not saying it's not there, it is. While he's getting praise from a lot of people, he felt the need to hop on social media and say that because, again, he's feeling that of just like, man, what else do I have to do? What else? Do we just beat, he's sitting there thinking, what do you mean? We just beat the team that everybody was crowning and, Josh Allen's the MVP, apparently this, that, and the other. Well, again, as we talked about yesterday, Lamar reminded everybody and Josh Allen why he is the MVP. And it's crazy because Lamar and Josh Allen have a ton of respect for each other. I have a lot of respect for Josh Allen myself. But it seems like they're just pitted against each other. And that, in my opinion, is unfortunate. Coming up in the second part of the show, though, Lamar Jackson defended Mark Andrews. Talk about the Mark Andrews conversation, and we'll also dive into some of the other narratives surrounding this Ravens team right now after their big Week 4 win over the Bills. So be sure to stay tuned. Plenty to talk about here on Locked On Ravens. First, the show is brought to you by FanDuel. NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. So for that Ravens and Bills game, if you had the over on Derrick Henry's rushing yards, congratulations, probably won over on FanDuel, or you just had the Ravens outright. You're probably feeling good about that for the entire game over on FanDuel as well. Just visit FanDuel.com. That's FanDuel.com. We're back our second segment, Locked On Ravens. Kevin Oestreicher still here with you on this Tuesday edition of the show. Appreciate everybody for being here, making Locked On Ravens a part of your day and your first listen each and every day. We bring you 5 days a week of daily Ravens coverage. And if you're an everydayer on the show, you tune in every single day. Really appreciate the consistent support. If you're new to the channel, welcome in. Hopefully you stay a while. Be sure to like and subscribe on YouTube and follow along in audio form. And if you're somewhere in the middle, welcome back. Baltimore again defeating Buffalo 35-10. Just a wire-to-wire victory. You love to see it. I know that it got a little dicey at the start of that second half, but you know what? Baltimore played a full 4 quarters, and that's exactly what everybody was hoping that they did. Now, in this game, Mark Andrews' second straight week, 1 target, no receptions. So over the past 2 weeks, you want to do that quick math with me here? 2 targets, no receptions. Look at that. That was pretty easy math. But a lot of people have very mixed opinions on Mark Andrews right now. Some people want to wait it out. Other people want him gone. Other people wonder if there's an injury. There are so many different routes I've seen people take with this Mark Andrews conversation. So on the Ravens official Instagram account, they were talking about Justice Hill's touchdown on the route that he did, where Lamar threw the ball to him in the back corner of the end zone, or just, well, not back corner, but he was in the end zone pretty wide open. And under that, a fan commented, Mark Andrews gotta go, man. And Lamar Jackson ended up seeing this, responding, and saying, please shut up. A little more vulgar than that, but we're a family-friendly show, so of course we're gonna say, just please shut up. Is what Lamar Jackson said. And we know that Mark is Lamar's guy, right? We know that. And we also know that Mark, from a pure reception stat perspective, has struggled this season. I mean, it hasn't been the start that anybody was really anticipating with Mark, but it is a bit of a different role he's playing. The Ravens are also playing from positive game script, which means they're just not throwing the ball as much. The Ravens have only thrown the ball 32 times over the last 2 weeks. And for comparison, Josh Allen threw the ball 29 times last week. So it's a difference between positive and negative game script. But look, we have to be fair in this as well. Mark Andrews had a pretty bad drop in this game. He was wide open, had a lot of green grass in front of him, and just dropped it straight up. And that's not good enough. He has to be better in those situations. And over the course of the season, you know, we talked about it was the Isaiah Likely show in week 1, and you know, everybody, that was the Isaiah was the new craze, and everybody was kind of tossing Mark aside. Week 2, he kind of got going a little bit, but then week 3 and week 4, we know the story. 6 receptions for 65 yards on the season from Mark Andrews, so 10.8 yards per reception. So Mark's going to go to bat for his guy, right? We know that. And I am not on the train of get rid of Mark Andrews. I'm not there. I know some people are. I understand where, you know, with the salary and whatnot, and if you're not going to utilize him, and if he's not going to, you know, do this, that, and the other, why do you have him on the roster? That's the view of some people. And if you're one of those people, you know, I respect your opinion. But personally, for me, I still think Mark Andrews has value to this team. Especially, we literally just talked about it with Lamar, where even if he's not having this big passing game, he's still making an impact on the game in so many different ways, where he has that value. Well, Mark Andrews, it'd be a different conversation for me. It'd be a different conversation with Mark Andrews if we were talking about a guy that was providing no value on the field. If he wasn't catching balls, wasn't blocking, wasn't doing anything, was just kind of out there, right? But what Mark Andrews is doing is, even without having the catches, the targets, the touchdowns, he is blocking like I have never seen him block before. Talked about it last week. Came off of his best grade blocking-wise from PFF he's ever had, ever. And then we saw him in week 4 just getting dirty with it, man. Just putting guys on the ground, getting physical, sealing off defenders, just doing everything. And that is exactly what you want to see, because maybe it's not going his way in terms of receptions. It's not. We can all acknowledge that. But he's finding a way to make an impact. And that, to me, is fine. Because maybe his role is changing a little bit, right? We know that the Ravens are spreading the ball around more. Lamar's spreading the ball around more. In years past, it was, well, man, Mark is down there somewhere. Let me just chuck this thing up and see what happens. But it's not like that this season. And I love that personally. I love that Lamar's looking all around the field. I love that Lamar's taking what's given to him by the defense. Everybody's getting all mad at Lamar. Again, this is something I also forgot to mention in the first part of the show. But everybody's getting all mad at Lamar. Not Ravens fans, obviously. But everybody who's a Lamar hater and whatnot and trying to discredit him is saying, oh, look at the passing chart where all of his completions for the most part are at the line of scrimmage, and, you know, he's getting carried by the yards after catch, da-da-da. I love it. I love that. You know why? Because if stuff's not available, don't force the ball. Take what the defense gives you and let your receivers work for you. Let your receivers get you those yards. If the defense is giving you green grass with a check down option, take the check down option. We've been screaming that from the rooftops for years here in Baltimore. It's something we've wanted to see Lamar Jackson do. I think he took a positive step in that direction last season. We're seeing it to a whole nother level this year. And so the whole notion of, well, Mark isn't doing anything. He's washed up. You know, he's providing no value. That's not true. Because sure, he's not getting the receptions, not getting the targets, not getting the touchdowns. But even his presence out there still today, it's still making the impact. And teams have to be able to account for him because teams still are. And that's the big thing, too. If you trade away Mark Andrews, that's one less threat you have. Even if they were using him as a pure decoy every week, which I know they're not doing. But if they were using him as a pure decoy, teams still have to account for it because of who Mark Andrews is. And on top of that, the blocking's good. So, you know, the conversation around Mark, I get it. It's been disappointing because we're just not used to something like this. We're used to Lamar and Mark having that connection. And they haven't this year. But there are other circumstances. And it was cool to see Lamar defend him like that. It was kind of going in the comments and doing his thing like that. So shout out to Lamar and Mark Andrews. Again, I think it'll work itself out regardless of what his final stat line looks like this season, especially if he continues blocking the way that he has. But coming up in the final part of the show, we'll get into those narratives for Baltimore. I know I said we do it in the second part of the show, but went a little long there on the Mark Andrews. So again, final part of the show, talk about the narratives for Baltimore from that Buffalo game and diving a bit into what John Harbaugh had to say as well as some other stats. So be sure to stay tuned. Lots to get to on Locked On Ravens. First, the show is brought to you by Gametime. I love going to live events no matter what kind. I've had a ton of great memories from growing up, whether it's sports, music, comedy, theater, love them all. And I also love making new memories. I go to a couple events per year to try to make those memories. But Gametime has a new feature called Gametime Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. Gametime Picks filters out the fluff to show you all the incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Plus, Gametime had a great 50% off Labor Day sale for Diamondbacks and Dodgers, which was awesome. But for that Ravens and Bills game, if you're able to find a deal over on Gametime and enjoy the game at M&T Bank Stadium, I'm sure it was a wonderful time. And for the Ravens and Bengals this upcoming week in Cincinnati, Gametime also has deals. They have super deals and also other tiers of deals as well. And the app has so many great features such as Gametime Picks, seat views, lowest price guarantee, Gametime ticket coverage, and so much more. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONNFL, spelled LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? Gametime. We're back. Our final segment, Locked On Ravens. Kevin Oestreicher still here with you, talking Ravens football, talking about a 2-2 football team, right? Just a couple weeks ago, it was 0-2. The Ravens have improved their record to 500. Appreciate everybody for being here today on the show. Be sure to like and subscribe in video form on YouTube. We just hit 8,000 subscribers. We're on the way up to 9,000. We are growing rapidly over on the video side of things. Would really appreciate all your support and already do appreciate all of it already on that side of things. In the audio form, again, had some weird technical difficulties yesterday, but the audio side is growing 100%. It is incredible what we've been able to do over the past 5+ years in audio form. And again, a lot has happened over the course of those 5 seasons. I have not had technical difficulties like I had yesterday with the audio form, where for some reason, it just cut off right as I started the third segment. But we got it uploaded in full. It's there now, so apologize for that. But in audio form, we've done so many of these shows. This is episode 1,347 consecutively for me on Locked On Ravens, and both video, audio. We are growing the communities at a rapid rate. So this Baltimore team got plenty of respect, plenty of it over the course of Monday. And it was really cool to see. You had Rex Ryan doubling down and pounding the table, saying the Ravens were the best team in the NFL. Kay Adams did the same thing. Peter Schrager apologized to Ravens offensive line. You know, you had Chris Broussard kicking his feet up and celebrating the Ravens win. Colin Cowherd going to bat for Lamar Jackson again, as he always does. There were so many. Joy Taylor talked really nicely about the team. There were a lot of great positive narratives coming out of this game, and it was really nice to hear about, this team getting credit. But then, of course, there were some other narratives like we talked about that weren't as kind. And it felt like it's all coming from former players. You know, we talk about the facility. It's a show that has Emmanuel Acho on it, James Jones, Sean McCoy, and they kind of apologized to Lamar, but then they did the whole thing where if the Ravens win, they don't get the credit. The other team was just bad. And then if they lose, the Ravens get all the blame. But they were talking about, well, Josh Allen needs more help. And if the Bills had the most egregious thing was Emmanuel Acho was talking about, well, if the Bills had Tre'Davious White and Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer, then that wouldn't happen. If they had their healthy guys and all the guys who were injured as healthy players, then the Ravens don't do that. It's again, just give credit. The Ravens played well. The Bills didn't. Right? You're allowed to say it. A lot of your counterparts did on the national media stage. It's okay. It's okay to give the Ravens credit. I promise nothing bad is going to happen. I promise. You know, I get that teams have bad games. Buffalo did. And you can say that Buffalo played badly and that, you know, Buffalo didn't do their thing. But you can also say the Ravens played well. You can also say that, you know, a good team ran into another good team and one good team played better than the other good team. And you can say that. But you're at that point, you're bringing up players that aren't even on the team anymore. Like Trey White, he's on the Rams. Jordan Poyer's on the Dolphins. Micah Hyde isn't even signed right now. You know, like, if the Bills had these guys, they don't. I mean, they got rid of them all for a reason. I don't know why we're bringing up. Okay, well, yeah, if the Ravens had Ray Lewis and Jonathan Ogden and Ed Reed, they'd have won this game by 35 points, not 25 points. I mean, that is just, what are we doing there? What are we doing? So, yeah, that a lot of great positive narratives and storylines coming out of this game for the Ravens. They certainly got their respect, but, you know, some disrespect just never ends. And we'll bring up both, and we'll talk about it always here on Locked On Ravens. John Harbaugh had a couple things to say as well after the game, praised the offensive line, obviously. I think we're going to see week to week with this offensive line now, where it didn't necessarily feel that way over the course of the first couple of weeks. But honestly, now with John Harbaugh saying what he said, I think we are going to see him. Maybe Patrick McCary stays at left guard. We'll see. But, you know, he said it made a lot of sense to move McCary over with where he's out. And McCary's superpower is that versatility. So we'll kind of see. But it feels like Harbaugh's messaging was, we'll evaluate on a week-to-week basis and play the best five guys. And I believe him more than I did at the beginning of the year. I'll say that, just based off of some of the trends that we've seen. Praised Derrick Henry a bunch. Obviously, he took accountability, obviously, for the bad penalty sequence that happened for him. Said, there's a lot of things that happen, but I want that one back. I still feel bad about it. I feel bad about it 10 years from now. It was just a bad sequence for me, especially. John Harbaugh also defended Mark Andrews, saying Mark Andrews is definitely going to have big games here catching the ball. Mark is a star. There's no doubt about it. And also said he's excited about the fact that they've had big games offensively without Mark Andrews being heavily involved. And I actually agree with him there, where they're still being able to put up these numbers without having one of their star players kind of do his star player thing. Also gave an update on Arthur Millette, saying that he is eligible to return in week 5, obviously, and he will practice this week. So that's a big step in the right direction for Arthur Millette. But overall in this game, as we talked about on yesterday's show, and we'll pull up the graphic here, 35-10, incredible. Again, Harbaugh's happy with it. The Ravens are happy with it. I'm happy with it. A lot of people are happy with it in Baltimore. Almost 200 total yards more than the Bills. Almost 200 more rushing yards than the Bills. 5.5 more yards per rush than the Bills. Over 3 more yards per pass and over 3 more yards per play. This was just a dominant performance all around. You can see it both on the offensive side of the ball and the defensive side of the ball. I mean, you know, you talk about the quarterback comparison, which you talked about yesterday too. Lamar Jackson goes 13 of 18, 72.2% for 156 yards and 2 passing touchdowns. Josh Allen, 16 for 29, 55.2 completion percentage, 180 yards and 0 passing touchdowns. So Lamar Jackson throws for 24 less, passing yards than Josh Allen on 3 less completions on 11 less attempts. So Lamar had an impact on this game. I know people who box score watch won't say it, but he did. He had a huge impact on the game overall. And one more thing we'll talk about here. We'll get the AFC North standings up real quick again. Steelers at 3-1, Ravens 2-2, Browns and Bengals both at 1-3. Ravens are right back in this thing. I said they needed to win 2 of their next 3 games after they lost to Las Vegas in week 2 and dropped to 0-2. 2-3 was kind of the worst case that they had to be in, and now they will be there if they lose to Cincinnati. I don't expect them to lose to Cincinnati, but look, we always knew this team was going to have some growing pains early, whether it be defensively with new defensive coordinator. Zach Gore called a heck of a game in this one. Kaveh Noy's been balling out. Travis Jones been balling out. Marlon Humphrey. I mean, there are so many players you can give credit to, not only for the Buffalo game, but over the course of the season, we've seen guys step up. Adafe Owe, I thought David Ajabo had the play of the game, in my opinion. So, all in all, very well-rounded win for this team. And plenty of storylines coming out of it on Monday, and we'll see what ends up happening today on a Tuesday. That's all I have for you today, though. I'm Locked On Ravens. Thank you so much for tuning in. On the way out, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe button on YouTube and follow along in audio form as well. Coming up tomorrow, more Ravens content, so be sure to stay tuned. I'll see you right back here tomorrow on Locked On Ravens.